Oh, God, love live TV. This is hilarious. I forgot to hit a button. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson. We created this show for you because we want everybody with an invisible condition to know that they have a voice, they have a community, and they're not alone. You're not alone. So today we have a guest. Her name is Dr. Pauline Dillard. In 2020, she started experiencing back pain and neuropathy in her feet. At first, she thought maybe it was COVID related. She worked on healing this pain with like a healthy diet, lifestyle. When the pain persisted, she started looking for other explanations and treatments, and found that the back pain was due to a degenerative condition in her back. Ugh. And the neuropathy was related. So, despite the challenge of this invisible condition, Dr. Pauline runs a thriving Christian counseling practice, Dunamis Marriages, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She also has a background in childbirth education and labor support. She has a PhD in Christian clinical psychology. Yikes, that's a mouthful. Uh, from South Florida Bible College and Theological Seminary. And she has been helping couples build Christ-centered, heart-connected, spirit-filled marriages for the past 15 years. Pauline has 3 grown sons, lives in Colorado Springs with her husband and 2 dogs. And personally, Catherine and I, have known Pauline for over 15 years, and we are so thankful that we got to go through her counseling as well, because it completely changed our marriage and changed our life. So I am so excited to have her on the show with me. I'm going to play a short video of hers real quick, and then she'll join us in the studio. Check it out.
How did you guys find out about the Dunamis Center?
A friend of mine came here and has actually met with Dr. Pauline quite a bit, and recommended that we give her a call, and so we did. I'm glad we did. But he had a lot of good things to say. He's seen some positive results in his life from meeting with her.
The next question, have you both gone to counseling before?
Well, it's just no.
No.
Yeah.
We've never been to counseling before this.
How did you feel when you stepped into Pauline's office?
First time walking into the office, I felt nervous.
Yeah, when I came in, I didn't know what to expect, but it was a lot easier and a lot more comforting and better than I had hoped.
All right. Love it. Thank you for being here, Pauline.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here. It's so exciting. As you said, we've known each other for so long that I'm excited to be a part of your journey.
Why haven't we done this before? That's what I want to know. This is awesome. So,
yeah.
So Pauline, so you've been dealing with back pain,
yes,
which sucks. Back pain
yes,
always sucks.
Yes.
And neuropathy in your feet for about, 3 years?
Yeah.
Tell us about
that.
What is going on. Like what happened with this condition?
Well, 2020, of course, COVID happened. And in April of 2020, I did have COVID for about 3 weeks and, got over it and was thinking, this is great. And a couple of weeks later, I started having numbness and pain in my feet, and kind of like people who have neuropathy will understand this. We call them zingers, and it's sort of like a pain that just zings right up into the top of your foot or the bottom, sometimes out the end of my toe. Now, because of COVID, it was confusing because that was one of the symptoms of what they call long COVID. So it's similar pathway to loss of smell, loss of taste. And so, I was just thinking, oh, this is just part of long COVID. Maybe it'll get better. And, I had to start changing things. Like I wore flip-flops a lot, and the straps across the toes would contribute to pain. And so, I had to change my style there. So through that summer of 2020, I was dealing with that through the year. I thought, well, surely this will get better with time.
Right?
Right.
You would think
so.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, and then in February, excuse me, my throat is so dry up here on this dry high mountain. So, in February, I had a condition develop that is actually called abdominal cutaneous nerve entrapment. The entire abdominal, across my entire abdomen, the nerves were just firing off like crazy. And you go to sit up and the muscles you use. And it took me about 2 months dealing with that. So that I dealt with, like, heat really helped it. I had to sit a lot. I had to wear a band around my waist quite a bit.
Oof.
And so that clears up after a couple of months. And I'm like, okay, this is all good. Yeah. So through May, I'm thinking, okay, life's okay. The neuropathy's not so bad. The acne is cleared up. And then on June 1st of 2021, in the middle of the night, I woke up with the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. Worse than childbirth, people. Yes. And it was so bad. And Jeff knows me well enough to know I don't run to doctors. No. I don't hardly ever do anything like that. But I was actually in so much pain, I thought maybe I had to have my husband take me to the hospital. It was that bad.
That is big.
That is big for me. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. So literally I took NSAIDs, like aspirin, ibuprofen, Tylenol.
Sure.
I took like 2 of each of those just to get it down enough to be able to sleep the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So I did go to my chiropractor the next day. And he was like, oh, yeah, you've twisted your back, but there's no discs bulging or anything like that. It's going to take some time to heal. You're going to have to take it easy. So that summer, it was, I had a lot of pain off and on, and I had to change the way I was doing things. I couldn't just do my normal routine, and I couldn't sit for long periods of time. And but it seemed to be like slowly and progressively getting better. Over that summer. And so in the fall, I had a little bit of pain there, but not like I had before. Now, during COVID, I know a lot of people gained weight, and just know me long enough to know that I had lost quite a bit of weight.
Yeah.
And I wanted to lose some more. But once I had this back condition, I actually then gained weight during COVID, and the rest of it, I maintained where I was at. And I gained probably close to 20 pounds. And I thought, I can't do that. So in the fall, I started losing it again. And by spring, I had lost 20 plus another 10, which was great.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that will help my back.
You would think.
Get the weight off. It will help my feet. It'll help my back. And it helped my knees, I'll tell you that. But it didn't help my back or my feet so much. So then by the summer of 2022, a year ago, it started to get worse again. And was getting worse and worse. And I had people praying. I was getting chiropractic. I was doing heat, cold, I was doing all those things. And then I started taking more and more aspirin, which if you take aspirin for too many times in a row, like long periods of time, like I've always used aspirin my whole life. I've never felt like that was an issue. But taking it daily over a period of time created other health problems. So I ended up, I can't take just even over-the-counter painkillers. It was just Tylenol does nothing for me. And, 60% of liver transplants are due to Tylenol. I don't know if people know that, so I didn't want to do that. Nice. Yeah, that just came out.
That's fun.
Yeah. So then, so by last summer, it was so bad. There were days I was probably at a 10 on the pain scale, and I could lay down. I could find a position where I wasn't feeling the pain. And so I would spend days just laying down.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot done when you're, as you know.
Unless you have your assistant, you just go, hey, can you do that for me? But you don't have that.
I used to, but I don't.
Yeah,
I don't right now. So that was really bad. And so I was really praying and trying to figure out what do I do? Because I don't want surgery.
No, not if you
I don't want
surgery.
steroids,
No.
And so,
Well, let me just bust in here real
Okay,
quick
yeah.
and just throw this out there for everybody watching on the live show.
Mhm.
Um, if anybody's dealt with this kind of thing, like have you ever dealt with back pain, been, gone to the doctors, they said it's this, no, it's that, no, it's this,
Mhm.
gone to the chiropractor, nothing works. Long-term back pain is terrible. If anybody's had it, chime in.
Yes.
You can comment.
Yeah.
Facebook to me is the easiest, but everybody, we're on YouTube Live and on E360 Live right now. So
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
comment. Also, if anybody has a question for the marriage counselor, uh, she's right here.
I'm here.
So do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Go ahead. So you knew this was, you didn't know this was degenerative though. You just knew
No.
it hurt like hell. You
Yes,
just didn't
and
know
I
it was
thought
okay.
it was like I had been like sanding iron deck furniture. I wanted to repaint it, and so I thought that it had come from like that, like those motions, that movement. And my chiropractor also thought I had just like twisted it doing that. And so I didn't really know, and I figured it was just gonna heal if I just took time and waited for it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I asked a lot of people to pray, but in
Sure.
like June of 2022 last year, it just started getting worse and worse and worse to where I felt like I couldn't really do much of anything.
Yeah.
Physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
hard.
like, so so I know we're going to talk about this more,
Mhm.
minimizing the pain, the impact of the pain back in in another segment. But
Mhm.
so it obviously impacted your day to day.
It did.
When I mean, if you can't do anything, you're laying on the back, just hanging out,
Mhm.
writhing in pain. No big deal. That's how did that affect it? I mean, it hasn't been till recently, so you didn't have little kids running around.
No,
But
fortunately for
right.
me, but yeah.
How did that impact your day to day, though? I mean, that's got to be.
Well, and Jeff, I know that when something's coming on, there's a whole emotional element to it as well. There's this whole psychological framework. Like you see yourself a particular way. Like I saw myself a particular way, and if I wanted to go do something or bend down and pick something up, I just did it, and it was fine. And so just going to
Yeah.
do things the way that I've always done them and being just literally caught short of not being able to do it. That was just like trying to figure out, should I do it? Should I not do it? Can I bend down? Can I not bend down? Can I pick that
Yeah.
up? Can I not pick that up? And so for me, my whole perception of how do I move through the day was entirely in flux.
Yeah.
And nobody could really see what was happening with me. So if I'm standing there and I'm saying to somebody, I need you to pick that up for me, and I'm standing there looking perfectly healthy, people
What's
would look
wrong
at
with
me
you?
really strangely. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I didn't have a cane, I wasn't in a wheelchair,
Oh, like in a grocery store or something, or just
yeah,
anywhere.
or just anywhere really. I mean, I
Yeah.
could be like at church even and say,
Yeah.
oh no, I dropped my bulletin. Could you pick that up for me? Or,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
I mean,
And-
first reaction is like, you're
me.
right there. Why
Right.
don't you pick it up?
Right.
Yeah, I get
Now,
it.
I have an added little problem to this. I have a little bit of arthritis right here by my thumb, so I drop stuff a lot. So now I drop stuff and I can't bend down and pick it up. So I had
It's like
just,
the perfect formula.
I know, and I had just gotten to where, okay, I have to, watch how I grip things. I don't want to drop stuff. And they would just like slide out of my hand, and then I'm standing there going, could you bend down and pick that up for me? So that was just an odd psychological transition I had to go
Right.
through.
Totally.
Just it's hard to explain how you just feel. I'm going to just say I felt kind of silly, ridiculous, and stupid at times. Like,
Yes.
first of all, I drop things because of the arthritis, and that feels stupid enough as it is.
Yeah.
And then I can't even bend down and pick it up. Or if I do, I have to change my posture, like spread my legs out really wide, bend my knees,
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole
Right?
thing
Yeah.
just to bend down and pick something up off the floor. So it was very interesting at that time. And then it would get to where there were days I couldn't, like I said, even be up and about doing much of anything. One day, my oldest son came over to the house, and asked where I was. And my husband said, she's up laying on the bed. When he came up to see me, he was like shocked because
Doesn't seem mom like that.
No,
right? Yeah.
I mean, people see me as kind of a strong, healthy person, which in general I am. Except when something like this happens and to where you're like, I don't really have control over this. And, he just was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, well, I'm just kind of at a 10. I need to lay down.
Yeah.
By then I'd already realized what I was going to do to try to fix it. I mean,
Right.
but then I was just waiting for it to happen. But, praying and praying and praying and not seeing that change,
Yeah.
and, it didn't shake my faith. I'm just going to say that because I've been in the Lord long enough to know that he chooses what he wants to do and how he wants to heal you.
Right.
But I wouldn't say I wasn't like frustrated with God a little bit during that time.
Believe me, I get it.
Mhm.
There's been times because, people at church, well-meaning people at
Yes.
church will say, well, or they'll see you go for surgery and then they'll see you come back. And
Mhm.
for me, surgery isn't making it better, it's maintaining my life as it is.
Mhm.
And if I hadn't had the surgery, I would die. So having
Right.
surgery just
Right.
keeps me here. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't cure me. But people
Correct.
do that. They're like, oh, thank God you're back. Now you're good.
Right.
No,
And they give you a version
not
of
always.
just pray longer, harder, and with more faith,
Ugh,
and it's
yeah.
all going to be fine. And Jeff, you've known me long enough to know how much
Well,
that doesn't fly.
we all
with
know
me.
that's not not a
Yeah,
thing
and
necessarily.
but of course, I always wanted to go there first. I wanted
Of
to
course.
say, okay, Lord, I'm doing the work.
Well, he knows you better.
He knows
Why?
me. Yeah.
Why not? If you're going to ask anybody, ask him.
Correct.
So I get it.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like God just tells me to slow down, or like he wants to do this different. And so Jeff, you've known me long enough to also know I don't go to doctors. I mean,
No,
I know
not if
I
you can
have
help it.
nothing against what you need.
No, sometimes
'cause
you
God
got to.
Yeah.
You have to. Yeah,
But
just
it really frustrates me when people say, well, God uses doctors. Yes, he does.
Yes, they do.
But I want to go to
Yes.
him first, and I want him to direct. What do I do, and how should I do it? And is there an answer before that, or do I need
Well, I mean,
a doctor?
God created the doctors and created the knowledge that they were going to have to be able to do all the things they do.
Right.
So why wouldn't you go to that source first? And then if that
Right.
doesn't give you your answers,
Yes.
then go to the doctors that obviously are trained for this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then it makes sense.
Yeah. And so to me, it was always like, I've got to be God led on every step that I take,
course.
and I'm never going to just jump ahead of this. So one Sunday I went up for the people after service to pray for me.
Hold on one second.
Sure.
I don't want this story to go too long. And I know, we're both story people. So
Yeah.
I don't want to, but we're going to take a break real quick.
Sure.
And then we're going to come back. So we're going to do a
Great.
commercial, and then we'll come back and you can tell your story, because I know the story you're going to tell, and so I want them to hear it. So
Okay.
we'll be right back in just.
Hi, this is Ken D. Foster, the host of the Voices of Courage show. Join us live on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, where we help you see the unseeable, know the unknowable, and do the impossible on E360 TV.
All right. Okay. Now so this is Pauline. We love Pauline. Thank you
well,
for being
I love
here.
Jeff and Catherine
Thank
too.
you for
so-
being here. And before the break, we were talking about this back pain that just wouldn't go away, and all the associated stuff that was
Yeah.
going on. And you started to tell a story. And because we've known each other for 15 years, we know that I know your stories. And so I didn't want you to start telling one
and
then go, nope, commercial. So
yeah.
So what was the story you were gonna tell?
Okay, so I was talking about how I just couldn't figure out why I was getting worse and not better. And I went up for prayer after church one Sunday last summer, and people were praying for me. And, we want to pray with faith. We want to pray with belief that God is going to do a miracle. But we also have to understand that He chooses when and how you're supposed to do that.
Yes.
So
Totally.
I will honestly say I came home from that church service and I was just emotionally just kind of done.
Yeah.
And I was just, really sitting before God, and I was just lamenting. And I read an article one time about how we've lost the gift of lamenting. So I thought, I'm going to lament. And I was lamenting with God about how I don't understand what I need to do. I don't know what He's wanting me to do. And He uses our knowledge and what we know to direct us towards what He wants us to get to. So the thought that came into my brain was look up steroid injections. And I thought, ooh, I don't want that. But, it was coming from a time of prayer. So I did go start doing a search on steroid injections. And what started to pop up was stem cells and platelet-rich plasma treatments. And I thought, okay, that's where He wants me to go. And He just used that to get me on the computer to look at it.
Sure.
So I started investigating that. And I'm going to make a long story short, if I can. But I have, I'm on Christian Health Share Ministry for my insurance. So I called them. Yeah, I called them and I asked them, do they pay for these treatments? And basically their point was, as long as it's not, coming from aborted fetus cells, and as long as it's coming from myself,
right,
they would pay for anything involved in doing this procedure. And it's not cheap, just like, as you know.
No, nothing is.
So basically it started with get an MRI. And what's interesting is I knew it was from God, because even in the MRI, I was completely relaxed. Now, I'm not going to be relaxed. You know that. If I don't believe that it's God directed, I'm not going to do it. And so once I was in there, it was really funny, because even the MRI lady said, you were the most relaxed person I've ever done an MRI
Those
on.
things are loud and obnoxious.
They're loud, and you go inside of them, and people have claustrophobia and all this stuff. And I was just like, I'm here. God's with me. I'm doing what God wants me to do. So then I had to go see an orthopedist who specializes in what's called this platelet-rich plasma treatment.
Yeah.
And when he was reading the MRI at that first appointment, which I'll honestly say I was kind of nervous. I hadn't been in a doctor's office since like 1990 or something.
Well, MRI is so serious. It's like, ooh, MRI, what are they going to find?
Yeah.
So totally.
Yeah. So, but going into a doctor's office was not comfortable for me, as you know.
Right.
And my husband went with me, so I had somebody there to help, support me and encourage me. And even all the way up, we had to go to Lone Tree, which is up by Denver.
Yeah.
The whole time up there, I'm like, do you think this is what I'm supposed to do? And my husband keeps going, yes, we know it's from God. It's what you got to do. Just chill out. You're going to be okay. So he does this full exam, and then he looks at the MRIs, and then he goes, oh, you have a genetically related back deterioration. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, it's got to be in your family somewhere.
Oh.
And I was like, oh.
Wait a second.
Yeah. It turned out my mother had it. My grandmother had it.
What?
Yeah.
Come on.
And my mother, at her time, all they did was put her on like pain meds, like
sure.
serious, like tramadol and stuff like that.
Ooh.
So she was constantly on these pain meds, trying to have the perfect chair. I remember all this
Yeah.
now. And I'm like, darn it, I've prayed for like certain genetic conditions that I won't have them. And I know that they've skipped me, but I didn't know I would be praying about this one. So anyway, what they told me was the procedure was I would come in, they would take my own blood from me,
Mhm.
process it, and then later they would inject it into those joints.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a bulging disc or anything like that, but the nerves were inflamed because of this degeneration. And so they were being pressed
Yeah.
because of inflammation, not because of the discs or
Mhm.
anything else. And so we did that procedure, and he did 15 injections in my back.
gosh.
Now,
At one time, no, in one appointment?
yeah, 15, and they're little
Wow.
tiny ones, and they processed my blood, and then they took the platelets out, and it was, to help. The idea was being that like we put these rich cells in there, and it'll help that area regrow new cells.
Right.
So,
There you
they
go.
did that all at one time. Now,
Whew.
Jeff might understand this, but my greatest concern was anesthesia at that point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Because
because
you don't want to be under for too long because it really messes with you.
right,
can.
right.
can.
And I feel like anytime you take anything that alters your state of consciousness, that the enemy will try to take advantage of that, even if it's necessary.
I told you what happened with our
Yes.
surgery.
Yeah.
There was a surgery that I had that we did not pray before I went under,
Yeah,
and yeah, it was ugly. It was terrifying. I've never had images like
right.
that before. run
And
through my
I
head, and
remember
so-
that because
yeah.
I was in Phoenix and you called me.
Yeah, I
and
was like, what happened?
you and Catherine are like, what do we do? And
Yeah.
and so
So,
that was my
it's a
greatest
thing.
concern. So
Yeah.
the day before, I called the doctor, and he did call me, and he explained to me that it wasn't really going to be an anesthesia. It was more like Valium, sedation, like a
conscious
twilight sleep.
sedation.
Yeah. And he goes, some people fall asleep, some people don't fall asleep.
Sure.
And so I took all that in, I took that to God. And by the time the next day I was supposed to go in, I just heard the Lord tell me, just trust him. He's who I chose for you.
There you go.
So when I got there, I just said to him, I'm putting it in your hands. God told me to just trust you and put it in your hands. And he's like, okay, that's good. So I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but he responded really well to
Nice.
every concept I brought out about my walk with God. So when I went in to do the procedure, they put the IV in and they did all this stuff. And it was really funny because I was laying on the area, it's kind of like you're not really flat, but you're bent so that they can get those joints open.
Exactly.
And my face and all that. And all I said was, Jesus, I just give myself to you. And I fell asleep.
Nice.
I was in so much peace. And I slept through the whole thing. And
Oh,
I
that's
didn't
awesome.
even wake up until at the end when I actually heard the doctor say, are you bringing her out to the nurse anesthetist?
When I, every MRI that I've had, I started doing after, I don't remember what tipped me off to do it, but I mean, I was probably God, but I just started, I would just lay in there and you got the earplugs in, or if you're lucky, you can listen to music. So I had the earplugs in, and that thing, it's like a lawnmower, right by your head. And so all I did was sit there with your, and just said, thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your faithfulness.
Yes.
That's what I just repeated that over and over and over and over and over. And that made the time go like that. It was so cool. So it's amazing what things he'll give you to help with that. It's incredible.
When I came out, my husband was there because of course there was these drugs put on board and I couldn't drive and there had to be somebody to drive me home and all that.
Right.
And so the doctor gave him a prescription for Tylenol with codeine because that's something way many years ago I had done and it worked fine. But we drove home, and by the time we got home, I just said, hey, because I felt wobbly from the anesthesia, not,
understandably.
But
yeah.
I just said, get me into bed. It was probably about 8 or 9 by this time, or about 8. And my husband was like, well, do you want me to go fill this prescription or not? And I said, well, the position I'm laying in is comfortable, so no. So I never filled it.
Sure.
Woke up the next day, my pain was down to a 1 or a 2.
Wow.
And it was just like night and day from the day before to this day.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. So I had to do 8 weeks of physical therapy twice a week. And, Jeff, I just determined to do everything that you're supposed to do to help yourself get better. That's just, to me, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
But
there's
people don't.
there's stubborn people like me that, when you're young and crazy, and the first couple surgeries in the batch of surgeries I had between 2013 and today, that I would, I was like, oh yeah, I'm good, I'll go back to work. And then a couple more, and it was like, okay, nope. I'm slowing down. It slowed me down permanently, I think. And but sometimes you have to. You just listen to your body, recover properly.
Right.
And you'll be all right. So yeah.
Well, the thing that was interesting is this was done in October of last year. And on December 1st, we were scheduled to fly down to Puerto Vallarta because we have a villa there that we do marriage intensives once a year.
Sure.
Down there. People can come down with us, and I'll do the marriage intensive. My husband prepares all the food. I mean, it's an 8,000 square foot villa, private pool. It's just gorgeous. And I had to fly on December 1st. And if I had not had this procedure done, I could not have done that.
No, you wouldn't have survived the trip.
No.
No way.
So I was able to fly down there.
Oh, nice.
My couple I was with was a little bit older, so I knew that there were stairs in this villa, that it would be harder for them. I was able to do the stairs, which up till then I kept telling my husband, we have to sell our house because I can't walk up the stairs. And he kept going, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But so when I felt like, no, I don't want to sell my house, I don't have to sell my house now, I can go up and down the stairs. Okay, that was really super great progress.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you have, you obviously are a child of God, have amazing faith in what's going on. What's, when you're going through these things, your first go-to is, Jesus, what's happening?
Yes. And
right.
What do you want me to do about it?
Right. And what do you want to do about it? So that obviously comes through in everything you do, including your counseling, which I don't think we've touched on much, but
No,
you are a counselor.
Yes.
And we were, I have a feeling we were one of your first
You
couples.
were.
Because
but
looking
I
at the
faked it
team,
really well,
you
didn't I?
really did. You really did. I was impressed. Well, and I was a tough nut to crack. You told me that. I remember those words. But which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it was, what was it, 4 days, or I think
5 days.
I think we did like twice a week or something for a few weeks. But I don't think you cracked this nut till like the fourth time meeting. So I was like the most excited to get in there, but then I was the toughest one to crack. So
yeah.
But this counseling, I mean, I want you to talk about it because it's something that I had never heard of before.
Okay.
And I was excited to get in there, and then when we got in there, I went, oh crap.
Yeah, now she's gonna get me.
Oh God, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So back in 2008, I was finishing graduate school. I was actually working on my doctoral dissertation at the time, and I was introduced. And let me just back up a step. During graduate school, I probably did about 4 classes on marriage counseling, and literally, I would read and turn the page and go, "Well, that's not going to work." Okay, yeah, that's not going to work.
Well, that's
and
dumb.
I told God, and as soon as you say "I told God," you're in trouble, right?
If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I told God, I do not want to do marriage counseling. There is a whole lot of work there with very little result. Because at that time, it was maybe a 10 to 15% success rate for most of these methods. I know,
sure.
It is.
Well, for those methods, for the methods that up till now, yes.
Yeah. So then I was going to a Christian counselors group here in Colorado Springs, which was pretty big because Colorado Springs,
Pretty big.
But, and this guy spoke about this model of marriage counseling, these intensives and all that. And what was different to me when I saw it was the coaching piece. Like he actually was coaching. He brought a couple in who was willing to let him demonstrate. He was actually telling them what to say, how to say it, how to get comfortable with doing things in a different way. So I asked my husband if he would go because it was just so different. He's like, yeah, sure. So we did do the marriage intensive ourselves first thing.
Sure.
And I didn't really think much more about it except for my mentor, John, ran into my husband at a store or something and said to him, does Pauline know that I train people to do this kind of counseling? And he came home. Right. Now, keep in mind, my husband never commented on what God had me doing. He just felt like, if you're following God and I feel at
We're
peace
good.
with it,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
Do your thing. And so for him to comment on my work was unusual. And he literally looked at me and said, how can you know this and not help other people with it?
Right.
I know. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's right.
That's how I've felt for 15 years. We know about this. It helped us monumentally. How
Right.
can we not tell people?
I know.
Yeah.
So I did training with him, and that took me a few months, and it just spoke to my spirit so clearly. And it just seemed to be a natural flow for me with God to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And really, Jeff, the hardest thing for me, the thing I was faking the most, was leading people in prayer, because that was what I wasn't really used to. How do I direct?
That
this
is
prayer?
so uncomfortable for everybody, though. I mean, seriously, like that's got to be like a whole semester in seminary or something for pastors to
Well,
get uncomfortable with that, because that is tough.
but even the
Ooh.
type of way I was leading people in prayer is different.
Yes.
Different than
very
just
different.
Here, let me pray for you.
Nope.
I
it was
had
very
to
different.
like get them to really connect to Jesus, and then I had to be asking the Holy Spirit myself, how do I direct what they're getting, and how do I help them to go deeper and connect?
Right.
So that really was probably the most, academic stuff. That's
Yeah.
nothing to me.
Yeah.
But that was like, I have people's lives in my hand. I have their marriages in my hands. I have their spiritual life in my hands. That it was so clear how much I had to stay so close to the Lord while I was doing all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go to another break here in about 60 seconds, but I just want to get this out before the end of the show. Thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I
Well,
swear
you
we
guys
talk
have been
about
such a
Pauline all the
blessing.
time. We talk about her all the time, and I swear it's probably 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times a day. We go, well, that could have gone worse if we hadn't known
learned the
how to,
tools, right?
Yeah. Well, that went much better than it could have gone. So
yeah.
the tools that we learned through the workbook and through your counseling and through all this stuff. I mean, it's been absolutely life-changing, marriage-changing,
Mhm.
absolutely insane. It's been awesome. So thank you.
Oh,
And-
you're very welcome.
And we're going to have information with her, ways to get in touch with Pauline and anybody that's, and our marriage, like when we went in, we're like, oh, our marriage is fine. It's
Yes.
good.
Yes.
We're good. We
Yeah.
don't have any big major problems, but it doesn't matter. So it can always be better. So you're gonna have access to Pauline's info after this, and anybody, honestly, any married couple that fogs up a mirror, so that means everybody should at least give her a call. So, but we're gonna go to a commercial here in just a second, and we will see you on the other side of that.
How did you guys find out about the Dunamis Center?
A friend of mine came here and has actually met with Dr. Pauline quite a bit, and recommended that we give her a call, and so we did. I'm glad we did. But he had a lot of good things to say, and he's seen some positive results in his life from meeting with her.
The next question, have you both gone to counseling before?
Well, it's just no.
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 Skipping.
Yeah.
We've never been to counseling before this.
How did you feel when you stepped into Colleen's office?
First time walking into the office, I felt nervous.
Yeah, when I came in, I didn't know what to expect, but it was a lot easier and a lot more comforting and better than I had hoped.
All right, we're back. Here we go. It's time flies when you're having fun.
It is, yeah.
And it's almost hard to believe, but we are here. This is our last segment, and
Oh, okay.
so we're gonna. So I want to. I mean, I definitely want to still touch on the counseling stuff, and I still want to touch on the back pain stuff, but because I know that is a huge part of the story. But so what is your like best tips for dealing with chronic back pain, especially those who sit for a living, and maybe those who don't want to, just pop drugs all day?
Right. Well, I think, Jeff, too, it's important to say that I do still have back pain, and
Sure.
I'm still dealing with it. So people don't understand that. And even
It doesn't go away.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even the orthopedist had said, you might need to do the procedures again. And now they're, of course, finding PRP doesn't really hold all the time. And so I'm back in a prayer mode of where do I
What
go
do I
from
do
here
now?
and what's
Yeah.
the next step? So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But what I have to do is walking is actually the best thing for people with lower back pain if you can
Okay.
walk. And I'm being told by, everybody, my massage therapist and my chiropractor and everybody, you need to walk. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like to walk. I am not a person who goes outside and goes, oh,
Not
what
the
a
power
beautiful
walker
day.
guy. Like
Let me just walk for 30 minutes because there's no reason to be out here walking other than that. And but walking is one of the things I've had to add in. And believe it or not, I prefer walking like in some place. So sometimes
like a treadmill.
No, like I can't do
okay.
treadmills either. But
Yeah.
like my husband might say, oh, I got to go to Home Depot. Okay, I'll go with you.
Oh, there you go.
So while he's shopping, I'm like walking around the store or Costco or, something
Sure.
big. And so he'll ask me sometimes, do you want to go? Because he knows I like to walk. And to be honest, there are days that I'm like, no, I just don't feel up to it. I just can't really get myself to go. So since I do sit for a living, one of the things I have to do is, like, between clients, I try to walk. I know how far it is around some of the buildings in my complex, and I might do a couple of laps or something like that.
Sure.
And just, I just force myself to do that. And with physical therapy, they gave me exercises. I've created this routine. And, I don't want to get stuff.
Yeah.
But, I lay there and I go, Pauline, you kind of like walking, being able to walk. Maybe you ought to get up and go do that. So I do the exercises. I have found a routine that works well for me. And icing, I have to use ice a lot. So I've had to add in time for that, like heat and then ice. So it's like I'll take a hot bath and then I have to sit with ice for 30 minutes. So I've had to add that into what does my morning routine look like? And so, Jeff, I actually feel like I'm doing life in slow motion sometimes.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll have really great days. I get up and I mean, I've had days I have no pain at all. I have days it's maybe at a 1. I have days it can go up to a 4 or 5, or I go to bend down and it stops me short. And so, and it can all of a sudden, my muscles feel really weak because those nerve endings are affecting everything sometimes.
Yeah.
And, but so I try not to schedule things too early in the morning, anymore.
Me neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's why this show is at the time that it is.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to see me on a camera on air at 6 a.m. or anything. No way.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I don't
Oh,
really meet with clients before 10
yep,
because it can take me time to get going and
I
things like
agree.
that. Now with COVID, I've learned to do a lot of Zoom stuff. So
Yeah.
I, can do that at home. I now have set up one of my rooms as a home office because I can do a
Nice.
lot of my Zoom work, and then I don't have to get myself all up and out. And, I still
Yeah.
have my office where I meet with local people. But yeah, and I also wanted to mention when I was having such a bad time that last summer, I literally was not supposed to sit for more than 15 minutes at a time.
How'd, how'd that go for you with the count? So were you counseling people and like doing laps around the table? Were you
No,
asking them?
but I was like, okay, guys, if you don't mind, I have to stand up for a
Yeah.
while. And I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, my clients were very gracious about that
Of
and
course
very
they were.
accommodating. And you've been in my office, and so you know what I do. You know
Yeah.
how I am in counseling. And I don't think this is a pride thing for me to say that people really like being in the office with me. I'm not going to say like in the sense that it's not hard,
Oh, it's
but
hard, but it's
but I'm
yeah.
giving them something different than they've ever seen before. So for that, if
Yes.
I have to stand up to do it, they're like happy for me to do that.
Whatever, man. Just
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
it coming. Yeah.
And sometimes my clients might not even know. Even today, I may have an ice pack on my
Oh,
back while I'm
on
sitting
the
there.
yep.
While I'm sitting because of just needing to bring some relief to that. So
Totally.
ice and heat alternating is one of the things I do a lot. My exercises I do a lot. And I'm trying to make myself walk more, but I'm just going to be real. That's where I'm probably having the weakest moment.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
because
I get it. I mean, maybe after the show, maybe we can talk, and I'll tell you how we do it, because I'm with you. I don't run unless I'm being chased.
correct.
I'm not a
Yeah.
runner,
Yeah.
but I can walk. I don't mind walking, and I've come to the point that it's like, okay, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
So,
And I
but
can walk,
it's
but
I get it.
it's not one of those things like these people who are like, oh, I just can't wait to get out there and walk. Yeah, I can wait.
I can wait. It's good.
But
I'm
I've got
fine.
2 little dogs, and I have a green belt behind my house.
Yeah,
So several
perfect.
times a day, I will take them out, and I will at least walk down to the green belt and maybe go a little distance with them, just to stretch. And I have you can walk in a circle inside my house, and I have figured out how many of those laps equals a mile.
There you go.
So in the winter, I will do those laps as well, just so that I keep moving.
Yeah. Nice. I
Yeah.
mean, whatever works. Do what you got to do.
Exactly.
So in the midst of all of this, all the crazy, all the walking with the dogs and
Mhm.
and with Mike and counseling and
Mhm.
working and
Mhm.
going to different things, how do you find hope day to day?
Well, really, my hope is in Jesus Christ, if they haven't figured that out yet. I mean, he's like my best friend. And so I saw a meme this morning when you hear the word Jesus, what do you think? And all these people, God, this and that. And really, I smile and I think he's my best friend.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so I have to sit with him a lot because my mind gets going, and he literally has to grab me back and go, hey, I'm still here.
Hey,
Come sit down with
yeah.
me. And so then I get to the point of I don't know what he's doing all the time. I don't know why I am where I am. And I don't have to know. I just have to be able to function according to what he leads me to do day to day. So
Right.
it becomes a day to day thing for me.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So what? So I mean, with the nature of the show here, just pick your counselor brain for a second. What is with invisible conditions, especially? What have you seen as how does that impact a family when a child or a family member has something like that?
Well, if it wasn't something that they were born with and you've kind of grown up with in the family, but maybe they had an injury or they developed a disease or something like that,
Or discovered it later.
Yeah, something like that. And then it's really hard because there is a lot of judgment. Even, people in the church
There
try
can be.
not to be judgmental. So first of all, you have to deal with, I know what's going on, even if somebody else doesn't.
Mhm.
And there's moments where that's kind of frustrating, but really to me, with my hope with the Lord, I just sit down with him and I go, I know people can't see this or don't know what's going on, but you do, and I do. So let's do this. Now it changes the dynamic of how the family flows too.
It can.
Time.
Yeah.
And some families don't make it. Some marriages don't, because
Most don't.
because when you do that for better or for worse part in your marriage vows, this is the worst part. And people don't think that it's going to actually happen.
How bad could it really get, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is the worst part, because now let's say the mom has to quit her job or something because she has to run a child to the hospital, or she has to be at the doctor's and her husband has to drive her. And, when I went through this, my husband, fortunately, was actually in a retirement zone. So it was easy for him to manage this. But I don't, he went out of retirement now.
Well,
so
not everybody's in that. So, if this
Yeah.
happened when you've got young little kids running around.
Yeah. And so there is often a selfishness in our generation today, too. Like, it's all about me, even though I'm married and have kids. And so when things can't be about me anymore, it really rattles that. And having to come back to, how do I be self-sacrificing, which is really what we're supposed to be doing for our husbands and our wives and our families and our children, is to say, what do they need? But it's exhausting.
Yes.
And so
It can be.
you need sometimes support, and you both partners need to make time for, you go do something that energizes you. I'll watch the kid or whatever. And now it's your turn. You go do something that energizes you. But they lose sight of that connecting to care for each other in the midst of it, too.
Yeah, that can happen.
And so, Jeff, as you know, I teach people how to sit down on a daily basis and very quickly, relatively quickly, in like 30 minutes a day, be able to really touch each other's hearts and be able to really understand where each other is coming from. And if you can maintain that, but we tend to put the marriage aside when things are going bad, or work gets in the way, or this is more important than that. And I really don't see that. I mean, you could have a child who can demand attention in the middle of that. But if you understand it, you know how to do it, you do it quickly, you see each other, you look in each other's eyes, you get that connection back. It's not gonna.
It doesn't have to take a long time.
No, it doesn't.
No, and it doesn't usually. I mean, especially after 15 years. I mean, there's days it's like, it can take, just 30 seconds, and it's once you learn the tools.
And yesterday I have a couple I was just refreshing with. It had been a number of years. They wanted to refresh. And since I had done their counseling, I had developed some new materials. I now have a workbook available that's called Your Dunamis Marriage Building and Tool Guide. It's a workbook. It's an educational book. It's a spiritual book. It's a Bible study, all of it. And it teaches and it walks through how to do this. So, and with it, after you finish doing an intensive with me, I also created like a 30-day workbook that actually directs, how do you sit down? How do you talk? What can you say? And they were telling me yesterday that they love this material because it's directing them and giving them actual tools that they can use while they're sitting there learning to do the tools. And I was just explaining what you said to them. Eventually, this is just going to be second nature. But in that mode, it's happening. And the workbook itself is now available through the website.
And that is dunamismarriages.com.
And Dunamis is spelled DUNAMAS, marriages.com.
Yep. Go to that website and check it out because it's amazing. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm so sorry.
And there's a free marriage quiz you can get
and
there.
A free marriage quiz. So get to the website, people. It's amazing. You're going to love it. It will change your life. I promise.
And you can email me if you have other questions, either about the pain or the marriage.
And we'll have info about that in the notes of the show. So so thank you so much for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. You know how much I love you guys. I will do.
We love you too. And thank you for watching. Next show is going to be Michelle Steiner, who anyone listening have a learning disability? Anybody know that anybody that has a learning disability? Friday, July 14th, we're going to talk to her. She's going to tell us all about it. Have some tips from Michelle on finding new solutions and stuff. So it's going to be amazing. Please join us. And until then, have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time.